gonna get worse. Much worse!
Our story begins in New York City at a building called the Millennium Building. This high-rise has 102 floors and 73 elevators. Up on the roof, security guards Andy and Gary are checking out the neighbors with a telescope. They're having a wild party. When it starts raining, the guards head inside just before lightning strikes and the power goes out. Andy goes to the bathroom, and Gary notices his watch is acting weird.
Stop it!
At the same time, an elevator opens. Outside, thunder is booming, and Gary tries to hold the door open, but it won't stay.
Hey, if I tell you to stay open, stay open!
Suddenly, his flashlight turns on by itself, and when he tries to turn it off, the door starts shaking along with his hand. The door slams shut at the exact moment Andy hears Gary scream. He runs over and finds Gary holding his broken flashlight.
Beat up. It was the elevator.
Andy says it's nonsense and forces Gary to go back inside with him. The next day, a bunch of pregnant women finish a yoga class and get in an elevator. They notice it's going down faster than usual, and then it suddenly breaks down. The guards hear the alarm and realize it's the second time this week. They never find anything wrong with the elevator, though. In a second, the alarm stops, and the guards think the elevator is working again, so they don't finish the maintenance. But the elevator is still stuck. When the women try to press the emergency buttons or use the phone, nothing happens. Their cell phones don't have a signal either, so they have to wait. During this time, the guards get a call from another tenant saying the elevator is broken, which surprises them because their computer lights are all green. In the elevator, the women are starting to lose their patience because it's so hot and hard to breathe. When the maintenance crew arrives, the guards cut the power so the technicians can open the door. But even the key doesn't work. At this point, the women accidentally set off the alarm super loud, and at least 2 of them start having contractions. Within minutes, all the women are having contractions together, and one of them actually starts giving birth. The maintenance team announces that the door is stuck, so Gary arrives with a hammer, wanting to help because one of the women is his wife. The technician tells him it's too dangerous and tries to stop him, so Gary chokes him to the ground. At that moment, the elevator starts to go down super fast, even though the power is still out. When the elevator gets to the bottom, the guards go to open it and are surprised to find babies inside. At the same time, technicians Jeff and Mark are at a cafeteria eating breakfast. Mark calls out a rude guy who is being a jerk to the waiter. The guy punches him, throws him onto a table, and leaves. Their breakfast is cut short when they get a call from their boss telling them to go to the Millennium Building to fix the elevator. At the same time, a reporter named Jennifer is sent to the Millennium Building to cover the pregnant women incident. They're being taken away in an ambulance. Jennifer tries to ask the mothers questions, but the police stop her. When Mark and Jeff arrive, they talk about the elevator problems and how the manager, Milligan, wants them to fix it fast because he's scared of getting sued. Mark and Jeff are taken to the motor room on the roof. As they check out the motor, they talk about a mechanic who took his own life. The guy thinks the motor might have been hit by lightning, but Jeff thinks the idea is ridiculous. A few hours later, they've checked everything, and there's nothing wrong, so they leave. At this time, a blind guy is at the barber, who's dyed his hair green. It turns out he was using his blindness to get away with feeling people up, so this was her revenge.
The dirty prick deserves it.
When he and his guide dog get on an elevator, he chooses to go down, but the elevator starts going up. It doesn't stop until it hits the 91st floor, which is still under construction and empty, so no one could have pushed that button. The guy pushes a bunch of buttons, but it's no use. He gets out, the door closes right away, and the elevator goes down without them. The guy calls for another elevator, which makes the dog bark. The elevator comes up super fast, and when the screen shows the 91st floor, the door opens, but there's no elevator car. The dog barks to warn his owner, who takes a step and falls. He manages to grab the edge, and the dog tries to pull him up, but he's too heavy. They both fall down the elevator shaft. That night on the 44th floor, Andy and Gary are stealing whiskey when they get a call from the surveillance cameras. Their colleagues explain that an elevator is going up fast, and no one is supposed to be in the building at this time. Finally, the elevator stops, and the door opens, but no one gets out. Gary and Andy try to see what's happening, but Gary accidentally bumps a statue, and the noise makes the elevator close the door and leave. The 2 of them go down and find the elevator open again on the 44th floor. It closes as soon as they get close. The small screen says it's going back to the 44th floor, but when Gary's flashlight starts glitching, the door opens even though the elevator car hasn't arrived. Andy goes inside to check it out and finds the blind guy's dog dead, hanging on a metal bar. At that moment, the door closes and grabs Andy by the neck. Gary tries to help him, but the door is stuck. Suddenly, the elevator car starts coming down and pushes Andy down until it cuts his head off on the edge. The next day, the Millennium Building shuts down all the elevators, leaving hundreds of tourists stranded outside. The press is not allowed in, and the police refuse to share any information. Milligan has a meeting with the detective in charge of the case, who explains that they've checked the surveillance cameras but couldn't find any intruders in the building. Mark and Jeff are taken to check the elevators again, but Mark has a headache and goes to the bathroom to throw up. He suddenly finds Jennifer, who's disguised as a cleaner, but Mark recognizes she's a reporter. She takes a picture of him and asks him some questions, but Mark refuses to answer. When he leaves the bathroom, Jennifer tries to follow him, but the guards kick her out. After that, Mark and Jeff go to Milligan and tell him they couldn't find anything. With the detective's support, Milligan announces they're opening the elevators again. The next day, when Mark goes to work, all his friends make fun of him because of something in the newspaper. Mark is confused and is taken to the manager's office, who is furious because the newspaper printed a photo of Mark with a provocative headline. Jennifer had a cynical comment from Mark about the elevators, and now the police consider him a suspect. Mark is also shocked when he finds out he's been assigned a new partner. When he looks out the window, he sees Jeff fighting with a scientist named Gunter. Mark asks his new partner about the mechanic who took his own life,
Set himself and the car on fire.
and finds out he was Jeff's partner in the city. Two friends are skating on rollerblades, not caring that they're bumping into people in cars. They finally get to the Millennium Building garage. One of them accidentally gets hit by a car, and the other one keeps going. The guy who got hit is checking his wounds. At that moment, all the windshield wipers in the car start moving at the same time, and an elevator opens with a strong light that sucks the guy inside. A few minutes later, it spits his body out on the 86th floor. The body flies through the room, breaks the window, goes over the fence, and then falls from the building. He dies when he hits the ground. Mark sees the accident on the news and goes to the Millennium Building right away, but no one lets him in.
Please, wait outside, sir.
On his way back, he sees Jennifer with other reporters and follows her until she apologizes for her article. She shares details about the accident and explains that the police think the guy jumped to kill himself, but she thinks there might be foul play. In the lobby, a little girl manages to escape from daycare and starts playing in front of the elevators. Suddenly, an elevator door opens. When the girl gets close, it closes right away, and another elevator door opens. This goes on for a while, and the girl has fun running from one door to the next. When the middle elevator opens, the elevator car goes up a little, leaving a gap underneath. The girl looks inside. At that moment, her teacher and Milligan hear her scream and run to the lobby to see. Luckily, the girl is okay, but her doll is destroyed. When Milligan looks at the elevator, he finds a doll's arm stuck in the door. That night, Mark is studying the elevator blueprints at home and hears a sound outside. He notices a shadow behind the door. He hits the door with a bat and opens it to find Jennifer, who's brought him a video to watch. It's security footage of the skater's accident, and Mark thinks it proves the guy killed himself. But Jennifer rewinds the video to show him the timestamps. The elevator took only 2 seconds to go from the garage to the 86th floor, which is impossible under normal conditions. Mark finally agrees that something strange is going on and takes Jennifer to visit Jeff, who hasn't answered his phone. Jennifer asks him to watch the video, but Jeff freaks out, screams at them, and leaves. This isn't his normal behavior, and when his wife comes out of the house, she confirms that Jeff has been acting weird lately. Jennifer and Mark leave and decide to have dinner together. Jennifer admits that she thinks the elevator is haunted. After dinner, they go to Jennifer's office and use her computer to look for information about Gunter, who designed the elevators for the company. It turns out he used to work at a company called Codal, which was shut down after investigations into bribery and illegal use of government funds. Another article reveals that the company was working with the military to make weapons. At that moment, Jennifer's colleague, Chip, walks by and notices the article they're reading, so he shares what he knows. Codal had problems because they were making biochips, which are computer chips built with living tissue. They built a computer on dolphin brains, which developed its own mind, and the chips became self-reproducing. So the whole computer grew and acted like a living organism, but no one knows what happened to it. Chip doesn't talk about Gunter, but he agrees to help them look for information. On their way home, Jennifer tells Mark she thinks the elevator is haunted.
And now it's taking revenge on humanity.
The next day, Milligan gets in an elevator and drops of blood fall on his shoulder. When he looks up, he sees the hatches open. Suddenly, the elevator stops and Jeff's body falls from the hatch. Milligan is terrified and crawls out, but after a bit, other employees see the body. Mark gets a call with the bad news. He and Jennifer quickly go to get details. To our shock, Gunter is sitting at a table with Milligan, the detective, and Mark's manager. The detective explains that Jeff was a suspect, and now they're sure he was involved in all the accidents. He also claims that the police received a message from the killer. Mark knows he's lying. When Jennifer tries to ask Gunter about the biochips, he stops her because he thinks their knowledge of the subject will make them look like suspects. The two of them leave the building, and Mark believes the police are helping Milligan cover everything up. He also tells Jennifer about Jeff's former partner and says he's starting to think the story about him killing himself was a lie. After that, they go to Jeff's house to look for evidence, but the police have taken everything. His wife says Jeff died the same way his partner died, which confirms that the story about him killing himself was a lie. After that, Jennifer and Mark go to the home of Jeff's partner's widow, but she doesn't open the door, so Jennifer picks the lock with a hairpin. When they get inside, they find a weird, specialized pool for the dead guy. The widow finally agrees to talk and says her husband was killed when they left him to bleed inside the building for 3 days. She thinks his spirit is still there and will get justice.
He will only find peace when he's had his revenge.
In the Millennium Building, a large group of people get in an elevator, which starts going up super fast and doesn't stop at any of the floors they chose. Everyone starts crying and screaming in panic, and one of the kids pees himself. Suddenly, the floor opens, and a bunch of people fall and die. Some of them manage to hold on, but the elevator is going up super fast, and one after another, they start to fall. The elevator doesn't stop, and finally, it breaks through the ceiling and destroys half of the motor room. The incident reaches the White House, and the president appears at a press conference and says that all the elevator deaths were an act of terrorism. At the same time, the CEO of the elevator company meets with Gunter and tells him that since he created this monster, it's now his responsibility to kill it. We go back to the Millennium Building. The police are showing up more than usual as part of an official operation. Jennifer arrives in Jeff's car, and Mark is hiding behind her. She parks the car in front of the building and gets out, disguised as a company employee delivering materials related to the elevator for the investigation. But the police still want to search the car. At that moment, Jennifer gets a call from Chip, who tells her that the biochip project is still an ongoing, active project, and now they're using humans instead of animals. The police get tired of Jennifer trying to stall, so they force her to hang up before they lock her in a room.
Damn!
At that moment, Mark gets out of the car without anyone seeing him and enters the building under a police car. While the police are putting boxes of ammunition and explosives away, Mark moves cautiously and uses his key to open a service elevator. He jumps on top of the car before the police can use the elevator to get to the top floor. When the coast is clear, Mark goes up the stairs and avoids a few police officers before he enters the motor room. There, he uses his key again to activate one of the main elevators, which the guards see on the main computer. After grabbing a light, Mark returns to the top floor and gets in the main elevator before the police can see him. At first, nothing happens. Then, Mark climbs on top of the elevator and uses the buttons there to control it. He goes up a few floors and stops the elevator when he notices a mysterious message written in blood on the wall. Mark looks inside a hole and is surprised when a bird flies out of it, but there's nothing else. So he starts taking the elevator up again. After a few floors, he finds a weird white substance in another hole and sparks on the wires above. When he tries to go up, the police get to the motor room and shut down the elevator. So now, Mark has no choice but to climb up the wires. He discovers a chamber in the wall and forces it open, which makes the box in the motor room shake and spark. Inside the chamber, he discovers the big biochip that's glowing. He doesn't think twice before he stabs it a bunch. At the same time, the fiery box in the motor room starts working and goes down. The biochip still isn't dead, so Mark keeps stabbing it. The police use explosives to blow up the elevator door and start to come inside, wanting to get Mark. The fiery box is getting closer, so Mark ducks down. Most of the officers are able to get out quickly, but one of them trips and his leg is left hanging on the edge, so the box cuts his body in half. On his way down, Mark gets ready to escape, but another elevator comes up and wires wrap around his legs, so he's dragged along with it. Using all his strength, Mark is able to free the wires and jump before the elevator hits the motor room. The debris starts falling, and Mark has to hide under a metal bar to survive. At that moment, Gunter arrives at the building. He's allowed in because he has a special pass. The head of the operation recognizes him from the camera and finds out that this has nothing to do with terrorists. At this time, Jennifer enters the vents to escape the room, and Mark gets out of the elevator. After that, he goes to the 65th floor and opens the elevator door to find the biochip again. He gets ready to shoot, but Gunter shows up next to him with a weapon. Mark quickly grabs the weapon from him, and they start to fight. Gunter pushes Mark into the elevator shaft. Gunter is about to win the fight, but Jennifer interrupts them, forcing him to surrender. Mark uses the chance to get the officer's weapon again, but Gunter blocks the door to protect his invention. At that moment, the police arrive, and Gunter uses the chance to take Jennifer hostage. She bites his hand to free herself, and when Gunter is alone, the elevator wires start moving like an octopus to grab him. Mark's leg gets caught in the wires, so Jennifer throws him the weapon, and he uses it to finally destroy the biochip. The explosion sends Mark flying into the hallway, and the wires let go of Gunter's body. After a while, Jennifer goes to pick Mark up from the hospital when he's recovered. They get in an elevator and are surprised when it suddenly stops. But it turns out Mark had accidentally pressed the emergency button. And that's the end of the movie. If you enjoyed this recap, check out the other horror stories waiting for you on screen right now.